troubleshooting. Okay, so some of you turned in kind of a Mongo thing, a query thing, but I kind of want to go over it and maybe combine what people did. So I'm going to bring up Notepad. As I said before, I think what would really be nice is if we had something like brackets or something that would, actually kind of troubleshoot JSON.
It's not on there.
What, Notepad?
It's not.
Oh, I haven't turned it. No wonder you're looking.
No, I'm saying it's brackets.
Oh, it's not on here. We could download it probably, but. So I'm going to do collections. What collections should we have here? Now, the collections are like tables, right? This is for the show tracker. We're tracking shows and fans. My base instinct is like a relational database where you break everything up into its own collection. Typically, though, a lot of times with Mongo or with a NoSQL, they don't. They combine things. So we could go either way. What kinds of collections do you think we should have? I think we have a minimum of 2 and probably a maximum of about. Any ideas? You guys turned some stuff in. What did you guys turn in? If you think about it, all right, so one of them you might have are the venues, right? Or the places where the music is. You don't have to do that. Last we did everything pretty much in show, right? So you could do shows. Shows will have a venue part. So if you wanted to combine, you could do it. What else? We want fans to be able to register and list what artists they want to follow, right? The venues is optional, I think. We could just do show and fans, but we could also separate them out. You guys have I can tell the energy is super high today. Any ideas? Should we do venues as a separate thing?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll do venues and shows, and then we'll do the fans. The artists, I think we can just list in the artists. Now, one of the things that the questions that I have, I don't know that I'm going to make it as a separate thing, but it wants to know what the genres are too. We can associate that with the artist in the show, I think. So this, I think if we do this, it'll be a little bit simpler than what we did this morning, and hopefully it'll work a little bit better. The more complex you make these, the more room there is for typos. Does that make sense? So if we do venues, what would be in a venue? So I'm just going to, we'll make kind of a sample thing here, and then we'll do.
The places.
So, yeah, so you'd want, venues are the places, right?
Yeah.
Address.
Address. Yeah.
Address, you probably want the name of the place too, right?
Yeah. Name, address.
And I'm just spacing over, and these are just for prettiness. I'm not going to put the values in right now. Well, I guess I could. I'll do this. What else would you want for the venue?
If it's all ages or not.
You could have, what, age restrictions or restrictions? What would you want to name it?
Restrictions be better.
Yeah, I mean, there could be other restrictions, I suppose. So if they have age restrictions or something, what else do we have here? What else would you want for the venues? Now the address, I'm just doing a whole address there, but you could break that up into.
Sometimes if you do cross streets or, parking.
You might want to know about parking. What else?
Or bus,
So you might parking. You might also under parking. You might also say near bus route or something. I don't know. You might want their URL. I don't know if you want email or phone.
I like phone numbers, but I'm old.
Let's do both email and phone. We're just kind of working up a pattern for these right now. Is there anything else for the these that would matter? You might do something like a description. Description being, like what kind of music do they tend to have? Are they an old theater? Are they a bar? So you might have some kind of description. Probably that could be an optional thing. One of the things about NoSQL is that you can have all of these, or you can only use the ones that are relevant, or you can add things to it for any record. The records don't have to be the same. They should resemble one another, otherwise it doesn't make sense, but they don't have to be the same.
Is the only reason to keep them the same just to make it easier to search, so like it's more uniform? So like if you search a bunch of stuff, they all have the same field basically?
It helps. I mean, I think one of the things is if you're going to use name, it should always be name, right? So when I'm saying that you don't have to be consistent, I would be consistent in the names of these, but you could add things to it. You could add another field if you wanted. You could, like if there are no restrictions, you maybe just don't list that field. Maybe they don't have a website. I don't know of any place that doesn't, but if maybe they don't. So you just leave that out, right? And then you could add, if there's something special about it, you could add something. As I said, it's not, you would want the fields to be the same because you want, when you search it, you don't want to have to be searching for name in one place and venue name in another, etc. But it's also really good. So I did URL as capitals, but maybe I should do it as lowercase. And just being consistent is, in case naming conventions, is really useful. As far as Mongo is concerned, when we search for it, if I do a capital letter on these, it's different than if I do a lowercase or different fields as far as it's concerned. So it's a pain, but it is case sensitive. And the data itself is case sensitive too. So if you type somebody's name in differently 2 times, it screws, they don't see it as the same. Does that make sense for a venue? Is there more that we would want? I'll fill these out in a moment. We'll actually do records. Right now I'm just sort of looking for a pattern.
So
yeah.
Say for example, if like Twitter was using MongoDB, because that seems like that would be a logical thing to do. Would they store all their information probably in lowercase, and then they would just they would have program some way that
I think there's a tendency to put them all in lowercase.
And then they'd have some program translating them into what they should be, like when they're presented on the web or something.
Yeah. So once you've got, if you've never done before, so once you've got like a JSON feed, there you can use, now you can't use there's nothing in HTML that will do it, but other JavaScript. So if you've loaded the JSON, you can use JavaScript, or you can use Java, or you can use C#, or you can use PHP, or you can use Python, whatever you're doing, to parse these out in terms of how to display them in your HTML. So you can access these are name value pairs, and it knows that, particularly with JavaScript. So you can specify the name and it'll display the value.
Gotcha.
You know, and you just put it between p tags or or in a table or however you want to display it. That being said, there's a lot of programming that goes into that just to parse it all out and display it. A lot of it you might not want to display. Some of it's like meta information.
Sure.
So I don't know if that helps, but one of the reasons why JSON is popular and why I think they used it for Mongo is that it is really compatible with the web, and it's really easy to move it about in the web. And most people that are web experts are also JavaScript experts. So all right, so let's do show. It'll be a little bit more complex. So this is show. When we do these are just templates. These aren't the actual things. Did you get it installed yet?
Yeah.
Okay. There's probably a couple of things we need to do when we do that, but we can do this first. I'm going to press enter a little bit just to bring this up higher. So we always start with a curly brace. And I always end it with a curly brace. And I use just space bar to bring these over. I don't know if you've used a lot of text things, particularly if you're moving across, but tabs don't always interpret properly. So a space bar is better. So I'm going to, what do we have for the show? What kinds of things do we want to know about the show?
Venue, genre.
You might want to know the genre. Is the show going to be a specific genre always?
No. So, would it be like,
You could do, so we could put genre on the show or we could put it on the artist. I'm not sure which.
you're right, I think probably it's better on artists. So the show, we should know the age, or we need to know the name.
The name of the show probably, right? Most shows have names, not all of them.
Restrictions again, or age.
Well, so we have that on the venue, right?
Yeah.
So we could do the venue. And I would not necessarily include everything that's in the venue, but I would probably create an object where it has, I would probably do like a minimum of name, address, and email at least. You might put the restrictions in here too. Or maybe more important, the URL would probably be more relevant. So you have a little bit of, I'm not sure I'd put all of this in there. You could, but I would just put enough.
So maybe name and URL.
Yeah, that might be enough, because then the address would be in the URL probably. Whatever you feel like you should have in there. But this is like a little object. You probably want to know what the artists are. And an artist could be plural. So I'm going to do, just as an example, so I'm going to do a square bracket, curly brace, name of the artist, genre, which could be square brackets too. And then close the curly brace, maybe do a comma and do the same thing again, because you could have multiple artists. Does that make sense? I'm gonna. A show could have many artists, and some artists can have many many genres. I think of Neil Young, who has two basic sides: soft folk and hard rock. Yeah.
So the brackets that's an array, right?
Yes.
What are the curly braces in this case?
They're separating out sub-objects.
Gotcha.
So the venue is an object in here, and each artist is an object. Now, you wouldn't need that if you only did their names.
So for a venue, why would you not do that as an array?
Because the venue is only going to be one venue for a show, I would think. You could do an array if there were multiple venues for this show.
Gotcha.
Do you know what I mean?
I think so.
So, if you made this super complex, which I don't think we want to do right now.
No.
Say you did it as Bumbershoot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted the venues of all the different, so there's one big venue, which is the Seattle Center, but there are hundreds of stages and stuff. So you could make an array with a list of all those stages and things.
Right. Okay.
Or you could have one venue, and then you could add something that we don't have generally, which is stages.
Mm-hmm.
And you could have an array of all the stuff in all the different stages.
Mm-hmm.
It could get pretty complicated, but you could do that.
So in the case of venue the key is venue, right? And then is name and URL, are those both values?
Those are both, they're basically a subset of this.
Gotcha. It was just another way to look at it then.
Yeah, it's just, so you don't have to go, you don't actually have to go, query venues to get the name and the website for it. If you want more information, then you could query venue directly. Does that make sense?
Say if you were to search like query in show, if you were to query venue, that would give you the name and the URL?
Yeah. Now, as I said, there's another way to do this is not to have a venue collection at all and put all the venue information right here. But you'd be repeating it over and over again, which they do. Part of the reason why they can get away with that is that we're entering these by hand. Typically, they're screen scraping. You know what I mean? They're taking it off a web page. The goal here is just to give a pattern, just to see what these kinds of non-relational databases might look like. What else do we need for the show? There's a couple of other big things that we need. And we need to know the date and the time. I'm going to do this as a single one because I know from this morning that I don't know how to do date and time separately. I do know how to do date and time together, but I don't know how to do it. No semicolon there, just a comma. What else might we want to know about the show?
You'd have
Do we
set
want to know
times.
price here, or
You could, if you wanted, you could do set times. What?
would we want to know price here, or would that be like on a ticket or something?
You could do price, and we could do set times. I'm not sure I want to right now, but you could. I'm doing a square brackets because, and you might even do like inside of here an object in the sense that there would be type like general, right? Cost equal or not equal cost, I don't know, 80. Then close that, comma, and then something like type equal or not. I keep wanting to do equals. What is the other type?
Yeah,
Well, there's VIP. There's also just where you just do seating. Instead of general admission, where you're usually standing on the floor,
Standing.
um, assigned seating or whatever. So there's VIP, that should be in quotes. Cost. I'm doing cost rather than price because I used price before, but you could probably actually VIP could cost a lot more than that. But anyway, you see why you could do, because there's lots of different kinds of prices, right? I'm gonna pop that down there. And then there would be a comma after this. What else besides price? Anything else for the show?
You pop this down here because it was,
I just popped it for looks.
okay.
You don't have to break anything up here, but I'm breaking it up just for readability. Not that it's necessarily that readable, but. Is there anything else that we'd have with the show? We got the name, we got the venue, we got the artist, we got the time, we got the prices. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Well, we could let that be it, I guess. So I put the genre on the artist here. I'm not entirely sure about that. It might actually make sense to have. Somebody last class suggested that you might want an artist collection. And what you would do in the artist collection is you would assign their genres. And you might say what their Facebook page is, and what their Instagram page is, and what their web page is, and all of that kind of stuff. So we could do that if you wanted. I never look at artists' web page or Facebook pages, but whatever. Most of them have them. All right, so let's do the last one then, which is fan, and then we'll put a couple of records in each one of these, and we'll try to insert them, and then we'll, basically the goal is to get like 3 or 4 records in each, and then we'll set up some queries. So is it restarting again? So let's do fans. And the thing with fans is that basically we don't need a lot of information about them, but I want a list of what artists they want to follow, right? And a list of genres they're interested in. So we want their name, right? And it could be, it doesn't even have to be their real name. So let's do like username. Although username might be a reserved word.
Oh, yeah.
Do we say band name then?
Well, it's not a band. This is going to be the fan, right?
Band name, no?
You could do fan name. I thought you said band
No,
name.
no, no, yeah, it's like band name
That would work.
User is a reserved word.
Yeah, I'm not positive it is. I think it would allow it, but. And then I'm going to do like their email. And then maybe a list of the artists that they want to follow. So it would be a colon, and here I would just do the artist names. It would just be a straight array. I don't think I would list. And you might have a list of the genres. And probably if you're doing this on a website, you could make it optional, whichever one they could do both, or they could do one, or they could do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It'll make more sense when we actually put a little data in some of these. Does that make sense overall? I'm asking because I'm not 100%.
Yeah, my only thing is, so when we do the array for the artists and the genres, we're just going to need semicolons too as we go through each artist.
So actually with the artists, if you were to put a value in here, so let's just say Def Cab for Cutie, they're playing pretty soon. And then you just do a comma. And then you say, who else do they want to follow? I don't care much for them, but I should try again.
I read them last night.
Yeah. You know, and you just keep separating them with commas. My kids have got me, so I listen to the end, although some of it irritates me. Some of it I like.
I used to love the end when I was younger.
Well, they used to play, they still do play a lot of Nirvana.
Yeah, I guess that.
I think that was
throughout
their
history.
yeah. So, I mean, you just keep separating them like that. It's pretty easy. All right. Any questions on these? Do these make sense? What doesn't make sense? Is there some major thing we're leaving out? So I don't know how often when people are designing NoSQL databases, one of the things is that it doesn't take a whole lot to do compared to the relational model where you have the ERDs and the keys and the foreign keys and everything has to be specific and real precise about data types and stuff. And typically, like with a lot of these, if you have a web form where you're gathering the information, the thing about a NoSQL database is you could just dump that into a NoSQL database. It's one big JSON blob, basically, object, rather than with a relational database where you have to parse it out into the different tables and fields, right? So you have to write some SQL to do all of that. So this is it can be a lot easier. That being said, keeping some kind of control and structure so that it is meaningful when you query it is entirely up to the programmer. The database doesn't actually enforce much. So let's do a couple of records. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to open another notepad. And I'm going to just split the screen with these. You ever done that?
It's in the bottom right.
You just drag it.
I'll just drag them.
You just drag it to the, actually, so, get a second notepad. And if you drag it up, sort of in the middle here. Why is it not dragging?
It's gonna roll.
Yeah, it should split.
Oh, right. Oh, I guess it's-
No.
Just drag it to one corner.
Yeah, if you drag it to the corner, so I'll undo. If you grab the thing and you drag it to where your cursor goes into the corner, it'll dock, and then it'll dock, and then you can stretch it down.
Just click on the other window. You should normally just place it on the left side, but you can just drag it to the left side.
We could copy it over. That actually, so I'm going to fill in data, right? So we could copy it over, just put in data. That's probably an easy way to do it. I do this quite a bit. When I'm comparing two documents, it's actually very nice. So I'm going to bring from here over. I'll copy that. We'll add some data.
Try to drag one to the left.
Okay. So what's a good venue? Triple
Oh,
door?
wait, no, it's working.
Where is that?
Yeah.
It looks like you haven't set up any HomeKit.
So what is the, it doesn't have to be a real address. You say it's on 3rd Street somewhere?
Yeah. It was 216 Union Street, right?
216 Union Street?
Yeah. It's allowed in a historic theater featuring diverse live music acts.
Is it a bar?
It can be like a restaurant bar, yeah, it's really cool.
Does it have a restriction on age is what I'm looking for?
Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
I wonder if the restriction should be on the show rather than on the date, on the venue. Oh, well.
I've never been to a non, but I mean, I've seen people that are younger.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Parking, probably not good.
Parking is, it's find your own.
Yeah.
I wonder if they do have a,
Okay, listen. Who's there?
like a weird,
I did.
it's really good. It's not too far down.
That's.
But it looks like downside, you can order dinner at some of those shows
Whatever.
and drinks, of course. Um, Garage is on the outside.
So they do have a garage.
You know, there's a garage over here, but I don't think it's theirs.
I'm not crazy.
I was trying to remember if they have, maybe it's find your own parking. I don't think they have that.
And it's probably like tripledoor.com.
So no problems.
I could.
Again, I don't have to have, these don't have to be accurate. We're not making this for real life .net.
You want the cakes all the crumbs?
All right, and then email, I would assume it's like, I have no idea.
Now that you mentioned it, I'm just looking at their database. So it's amazing. Directions, parking.
Yeah, I mean, if we were doing this for real,
Yeah.
we would probably want to, like for the venues, get their basic,
Yeah, they do
scrape
have
that.
valet service.
Oh, they do have valet. Oh, okay.
It's $1 cheaper than parking garage.
Cheaper than the parking garage? What?
I know, that's what they say on there. I'm shocked myself.
So I just made up some stuff to finish that, but there's a record. And we could do a couple others, but I'm just going to leave that as one. Let's do a show, I mean, one of each, and then we'll try to insert them. So in the show, again, I'll just copy and paste this. If things go as they did this morning, when we try to insert these, we will have lots of issues. So we've only got one venue. I was gonna, maybe we will add one more venue. You guys want to add another? Well, I guess we could do, you just use that venue. What kind of show name? What kind of music do they do?
They do all kinds, I mean, they do a lot of stuff. Music. So on their calendar right now, they have the Capitol Steps are gonna be playing on the main stage. Adam Williams Trio will be Earshot Jazz Festival on the 4th. An intimate evening with Mitzi.
Let's just do a title of it, an intimate evening. The venue, the name could be Triple Door. So So there's lots of repetition, right? And then the URL I'm just going to copy. Okay, so it has that. Let's give them 2 artists, even if there's only one. Any names? What was the one?
The paper boys?
The which? The Paper Boys?
Yeah, they're playing a lot.
Oh, I lost the name.
I have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't either.
Getting a movie for that cream.
Okay. And genre is probably just jazz. I don't know, actually. Anybody know them?
What is it?
What is this?
Maybe there's a genre on there.
I see what I did.
Yeah, they're. I think it's not a Bon joke.
They could have a. So anybody else? Another band. We can make one up. Probably, if I'm going to be consistent, I should probably like capitalize this. Somebody else? I mean, maybe their name of the band is somebody else.
I don't know if she said it. I don't know if she said Mitzi or Mitski, but there's a band that's called Mitski. It's really good.
Are they
An I at the end.
an I at the end? Are they?
She's like alternative rock.
So if there isn't a list of things, so let's do. I'll just say alt rock. I think I've heard of Mitzi. Mitski, actually.
She's really good.
Now the date time. To enter a time here, I am going to do ISO date. This is sort of a function that will do a date time. I'm going to do 2018 dash. I don't know when the actual date will be, but I'm going to do it the December 7th or something. I'm going to do a T, and then I'm going to do, what time in the evening? Say about 8, 7? 8. So 8 in military time is 20. Yes, you're right. 20:00:00. And then, and then I'll close the parentheses. The parentheses are because ISO date is a function that will make it a date time. There are other ways. You can actually enter it as a string, and then there are functions that will convert the string to a date. But
Excuse me.
so we have some tickets in there. I think I'm just going to leave them. Does that look okay?
For the genre, you have that as a.
I had it as an array, so because there could be multiples.
I see.
But since we're only entering at this point 1,
Gotcha.
I took the arrays off. But it could be like if you had somebody else. Let's say that I
When we enter.
alt rock and then comma
You can actually put her comma full,
folk. Okay.
just like singer songwriter stuff too.
So you could do that, right? Where we do. Actually, the square brackets would be inside though. So that she has, and then I do need a square bracket outside too. This is where it gets complicated.
Yes.
Because there's an array of artists, and then this artist has an array of genres. Okay, so let's do, does that make sense? Shows you how you can do that. Again, in real life, the typical way to get this isn't to type it in. The typical way to get this is to screen scrape some website. So then we're going to do fans, and we'll do a couple of fans, and then we'll insert them. And then I'll let you add a couple more records. And probably next week, depending on our time, I will show you how to query, although if we have enough time today, probably next week though. That'll be the last thing we need to do. And I also would like to rehearse it a little so I don't fumble too long. So this is going to be the fans. And I'm going to do two of them. So I'm going to put a square bracket here. Oops. Square bracket here. And then we'll do a comma after this. And then we'll do another fan. Okay, so fan name. Showgoer. Email. Showgoer@gmail.com. So they like Death Cab for Cutie and Imagine Dragons. We'll let that be. Genres, that would be like alt rock, right?
See, that's like maybe pop rock.
Yeah, maybe just pop or pop. Yeah. All right. Anybody have a good name for this one?
Concert lover.
Never say that.
Never say that. So NSD it. I never say that. So let's do one of the artists. Let's just say is Mitski. Mitski. And then we could do somebody else. Oh, these have nothing to do with each other, but I always put Bob Dylan in my list. And then genres would be like alt rock, folk. Yeah, let's just do those two. All right. We don't have a Bob Dylan anything where, but so we've got some sample data. And again, one of the goals would be to do a lot because you can see how I might have to help you set up on this one. So I'm going to minimize this so I can get to here. I'm going to start the MongoD. All right, remember MongoD is the server, and then we'll do the Mongo, which is the client. Oh, it looks like you got it.
Yeah.
Okay, here. So run the MongoD
We'll
first.
start the server first.
Oh, you know what?
Done.
Go to local. Right click.
You just memorized it.
It's not doing the same thing. Oh, wait, is it? Oh, yeah.
It is. It's just gonna show at the very bottom line.
No, it is. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so then,
Not inside of that.
well, that's the one.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, he did it so quick.
That's where we're putting the community.
Okay, so since he's doing that, he can cut up on.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. That one. The reason is that I'm not sure if it's registered with the server. Because I think it was something with the common board of server. So are we? So I'm going to do use show tracker. Now, if you've done this before, you might want to do like use show tracker B or something. So why is use show tracker got an error? Oh, you know why? Anybody see the difference? Yeah. So lowercase u on use. And what it does, why is this? I wish there was a way to make this a little crisper. But yeah, maybe if I dim the lights a little. Is that any better? Yeah. So again, this creates the database. When you say use it, it switches to it. The database now exists.
What if it's already there? You do the same thing,
So it'll just switch to the existing database.
but it won't override it or destroy
It won't overwrite it now. Once it's there, it just switches to it. If it doesn't, what it does, the logic is, if it doesn't exist, it creates it. If it does exist, it just switches to it. Yeah.
So switch.
Well, you know what we need to do?
Easier to just pull it up on your screen and to read it off the line.
So we need
You did that
new.
It's just, you like the way to do it?
No, I won't be.
Yeah, it's.
That's the, I wish I could do all the stuff.
Something this size, but with this screen.
Yeah.
But you gotta do.
Well, I basically had the same thing. I had two things. I had a driver's license, credit card, and then I want to save the screen. And then I had to do the, I mean, I'd sooner rather just.
You should open the MongoDB
I
first.
needed one. I needed it.
Yeah.
So I had some, with this little.
And then you got the other one open too.
She did this little machine, like, split it up.
They make a picture for that?
Well, yeah, I'm like, hey, you just make.
And then you can just do use show tracker. We all okay with that? All right, so then what I'm going to do,
Those little things got it.
I'm going to take my venue, my only venue. I'm going to copy it. Before I paste, I want to do DB. Let's move this up higher for you guys. DB dot venues dot insert. And then I right clicked and it pasted that. So you want me to do that again?
db.venues.insert.
Yeah, so it's db.venues.insert, parentheses, and then I just copied from Notepad, from the curly brace to the curly brace. And when I pasted, it pastes in. Right click and beside there and it pastes in. I don't know how to undo this.
Yeah.
And I have an error. What is my error?
You were okay?
Yeah. Well, so what I did was I actually went up there and had it copied.
Oh, maybe I have to write.
I'm looking at it, trying to see what the error is.
Copy and then.
There's no comment.
I went to.
Ah.
And then did like this.
Good eye. So there's a couple of things you can do at this point. You can come in here and make the change and recopy. That's probably the easiest thing to do. You can also use the up arrow and bring it all back. So I had no comma after the phone number. So I'm going to copy it again. And I'll do it again. This way I get to do it again. So I'm going to do db.venues.insert. And then I will right click and it will paste. All right. If it doesn't paste on the right click, there is a paste.
If it worked, does it go to the next one?
So what it'll do is it'll say inserted one.
I got nothing. It didn't complain with an error, but it also didn't tell me insert.
Let's see what you got.
Oh, you didn't close the. You just.
Oh yeah, if you don't close
Oops.
that.
So how do I get out of it?
So close the parentheses and then it'll give you errors.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It'll give you errors because of all those.
So we'll redo it.
Here's what I checked.
Oh, it's finally worked. I don't know what the heck was going on.
So what
Okay, insert one.
Oh, you missed one.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so
Troubleshooting these is why it'd be really nice to have brackets or something.
Mhm.
You know, it's a pain to. There are things on the web. There's a JSON validator, but it doesn't like this JSON, even though it works. So I don't know.
That's useful.
And again, if you wanted to see, if you don't believe that it inserted, if you did db.venues.find,
You're stupid.
and I'm going to do pretty, it will show it.
Proving you're stupid.
If you don't do pretty, it just spreads it across the. All right, let's do, let's add our show. The show is the one that's going to most likely to have problems, right? db.shows.insert. And again, I will copy from here to here. If there's anything wrong, it'll fail.
Of course, there's something type it somewhere.
All right, it didn't like the ISO date. What is wrong with my ISO date?
Is there a space or anything, or too many zeros?
I don't think so.
Do you have a comma between the? date
It does
and
need to
time?
be in quotes, but it is in quotes.
Is there like a comma between the date and the time?
No. Let me look real quickly at the Mongo. MongoDB. So let's do, I'm going to go to the Mongo official site. I'm going to go to the docs. So I'm going to search the documentation. I don't know if I'll see it, but ISO date.
Yeah, I think it's.
Were you trying to put in your show or was it just?
What? I don't know how I did the exact same thing. I like crazy. Oh, no. Missing something and not the proper show.
So here's what an ISO date looks. So --12.
Oh, where's the period dot something? Oh, that's Zulu time. Which is pretty much me time.
Yeah. I don't know that you have to do this. I don't know that you have to do that part.
Try.
I did it before. I mean, I did it last period, and I think it was pretty close to what I got. Did I do an error in the?
Period there. No, that was me.
When we did the ISO
When in
date,
doubt,
did
I
you type that in yourself?
I did.
Okay. And the 17.
So the 7, you know what, I bet it has to be 07. That might be it. It might be that it has to be 07. So let's go back to the Mongo. DB shows dot insert. Close that.
Yeah.
And it worked. It's a 0 on the date. It needed a 07. So I had just -7, but it needs 07. Everybody's insert or not?
Good syntax there.
Okay, I'll take looks here in a moment. I'm going to do DB shows dot find. It says, yeah, so it puts it out a little bit differently, but intimate evening, triple door, artists. So it looks okay. How many didn't go? Like all
I
of
don't
them?
think that's it.
Yeah, let me cover up.
It's so.
Does it
So
say-
it says like.
If I read it right, syntax error missing.
It says semicolon, which actually doesn't mean anything. It does semicolon. So show them.
Right, is that right?
I don't see anything cool in names.
Oh, you know, you're missing the,
Oh, yours is probably this.
I don't know, try it again.
Comma.
Maybe right there.
It's- You can't really, yeah. Should just repeat.
Yeah, no, worry about that. It's the same error, so it's not bad. I'm sure it's in there.
Yeah, so failed after.
Did yours work, or you got it sent back there? You got a different one.
Expression, got code license.
What did I spell?
Oh, well, drop.
Spell this wrong.
Is
Is it menu?
Yeah, that's like that one. Yeah. Problem for it.
It could be a double if the other's a double.
But what, isn't it matching menu?
And then one right there.
No.
That might
What do
be
you
it.
got?
Do I need to start again?
Yeah, you always have to do the DB insert again. Let me see what's going on over here. Did you figure out your error yet?
No. He's got a different syntax than I do.
So
Well,
mine
yours
is
breaks right after the date time.
after. Oh, did I not copy the whole thing? Oh, good.
No, I think it'll break if it sees an error. It'll break right after.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, let's see. Date.
So it breaks right
Wait a
after.
minute, is ISO date supposed to have a quote in front of it?
No.
Oh.
Mine didn't, but I still have an error.
Oh, because it's a function, right? So.
But there should be a quote there.
Well, on the inside.
On the inside, yeah.
I have one on the
Yeah,
outside.
yeah. Okay,
That might be it.
Well, I don't think so because mine doesn't.
Well, that's part of it. That's probably not going to solve the problem. But
Right.
look.
I know exactly.
Oh,
For the shows or show?
Shows. I think it was show.
It'll work either way, I guess, but.
Hey, you got the same error I do
Now we've got
now.
the same
Now we got the exact same error.
Alright, so when
Using
there's,
colon on something.
well, it says, so you're missing a colon somewhere, where?
Okay, but at least we got the same error. So we're both idiots.
Well, see, I had this, like, this, but it was giving me an error as well, so I took that out. I don't know if that would make a difference. but-
Oh, I know,
Oh, well,
because you have two, see how it has alt rock folk? The genre where they have, well, you have the square brackets there, but I don't see it here.
No, he just
I
put them in.
I put them back because it was giving me an error before, but now maybe it'll work. 'cause
Yeah,
I-
yeah.
Oh, okay, so you're saying.
Is that, in
Maybe
this
that-
one,
that
that's the
time
error,
date,
yeah.
maybe that time date was the problem,
Yeah.
so it's.
So it's.
So it says something.
Yeah, that's the error that was giving me the first time. It's not touchscreen.
Yeah, they are.
Hey, I got mine to work.
What did you do that was different?
All I did is I put those brackets in there like he did, but we clearly have something that's different in the typing. So all I did was I added that and that, like he did. I mean,
So I have a different-
do the spaces make a difference?
They might, they shouldn't, but they might.
Because that's the only one? Yeah, not really. No, actually, no. No, all of mine are.
Oh, I don't
I
know.
don't think that would be it, because I got the spaces, I've got the space, colon, space on this, the other insert. in that one.
Yours inserted, okay?
Mine I got, but I don't know.
Yours
Let me
inserted.
look at your version.
So clearly,
What is different?
I'll look at line by line.
Yeah, see if you can show your. And you're both inserted, okay? I know you two did. Oh, yours is still not inserted?
Oh, wait a minute.
I wish I could.
Wait a minute.
I guess that is different.
Would it?
I don't know why that would, yeah, I don't know why that would make the difference, but, it's something.
It is inserted. Oh, you're doing this. That was inserted to this one.
Here's artist. Try that, see how that there.
Not defined. I think what that means,
Not that big.
so there's only one thing.
That would be funny enough.
Triple net.
Where it says it's undefined, it's not.
Square.
Yeah, try to get maybe that, maybe something else.
Single codes.
Single or double, whichever one you want. When you do a printout from it with a volume, it double close it. Still having trouble?
Well, we're still working through it.
Okay, so we got square, curly, square.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we got date time,
Uh-huh.
ISO date, and then. -12-37.
Yeah.
Square, curly, side.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you're missing a comma there.
That's it.
Well, there's one stupid little thing that gets you.
Yeah, I know, these are a pain.
Might go in.
It better work. If it doesn't, then I don't know what to do.
Well,
I'm sure
so
that's
what,
it.
is it the same one?
My stupidity. Hey, we got one inserted. Oh, that's a pain in the
See, that was my takeaway on the last time we did this. Is that the worst part about this is just like, if you look at it, just like look at all these colons and the commas and
That's what we
that,
get paid to do.
to check if there's a comma.
Where the attention to detail.
This seems like this should be
Well,
much
that-
easier.
You know why this is 15 years ago in college, why I hated this? Because shit like this, and I'd be at home and I'd like, you couldn't search Google back then in 2003, where you could, they didn't have Stack Overflow.
Yep.
And I couldn't figure out what these areas were, and so unless it was me and the other person sitting next to me, who maybe nobody was friendly, more of the standard geek person.
Professional, yeah.
But
Oh,
they didn't, you know, people are a little more normal now.
yeah, yeah.
And I get so frustrated. I go to talk to TAs.
Unless you're in
I had to
class.
do all command line, and I hate it. Hate it. Editors, oh my god, they're color coded, they pre-populate, I'm like.
Yeah, back in the day, unless you were like actually in class, it's like, how do you even like try to study this on your own? It's like, it's impossible to like look stuff up and stuff.
All right, so we've done, so let's do the fans, and then I'll let you guys enter a couple more data things, which is painful, as you can tell.
Oh, this is painful. Hurts my head. Okay, so now we can insert.
Yeah, so I'm going to do db.fans.insert. Now, we should be able to do both at once because of the square bracket and the comma between them. So I'm going to copy and paste. Yeah, mine isn't pasting now, too.
Mine worked, but it only inserted one. Or at least that's how it says it does. I don't know.
It should insert two.
Oh, I know why you don't get a comma. Here, you're supposed to have a comma.
I think so. Or maybe not. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's back at two.
Yeah, it should have a comma right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, it should be on there.
And mine inserted two.
Huh.
Wait, where's it going?
The comma should be right after the, it's right after the curly brace. So this is one object, right? One fan object. This is another fan object. And then there's a comma between
No,
them.
don't copy mine yet, because it's mine only inserted.
Square brackets.
Idiot.
You can insert as many as you want if you separate them by commas.
I did have that.
Can you see that?
'Cause mine
Let me see if I can raise that at all. So one fan, comma, another fan, and then square brackets around them.
Oh. That part I didn't get.
The square bracket tells it it's an array, and then it separates the objects in it.
That's why yours is. We'll overwrite the other.
So, yeah,
we'll
if I-
add three then.
If I try this now, would that mess things up?
Actually, should just add it.
But we'll let will he have three?
He might.
Uh,
So I'm going to do db.fans.find.pretty.
There you go.
Inserted two.
So now if you did find, you have three, or you have two.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Is it just db.find?
And then I'll go and close parentheses.
Just that?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Actually, db.fans.find.
Oh, yeah, we gotta specify the database.
What is this? This is a weird.
So you do have three.
Is this an error or is this actually say it did it?
It did it.
Yeah, it did it. Where?
Inserted
Oh,
two.
why didn't it have all the other stuff?
It has all the basically it's giving the feed out of all the things that could be done. There's right errors, there's a collection, there's nothing. Right concern errors, no, nothing. Inserted is two.
Was it find that pretty?
Yeah. You do it. So you want to do db.fans.find. Yeah.
Did someone fix the insert thing?
What?
Did someone get the insert permissions?
Yeah.
Was there something?
I wish you could
specifically or-
Control V would have been.
Well, let's look at your.
I thought it was on
I can't believe this.
It seems unbelievable to me that like,
We're still
the only
working.
people using Command Line are the huge nerds. You would think that they would by now figure out.
Oh, no, they're like, no, this is out there.
But like elitist nerds they're the people that aren't gonna want to use the mouse to begin with. Like they're the ones that are like, oh, man, it's so much easier.
Well, they're using up and
So,
down.
I guess, so, but you can't use up and down to copy from one thing to another.
Guess what? You get the program for the rest of us.
That just seems crazy.
It's extremely good.
Oh, decades and you still have to write code.
Hey, I'm still thinking decades. Why does the manual have a stupid car? Car take me home.
It's true. It's true.
That's like the same thing. Oh, I gotta get my horse and buggy.
I mean, you probably could actually do that if part the system that we have here is set up properly. The technology's there. It's just society isn't ready for it. No kidding. That's the one truism in life.
I mean, I agree that I'm saying that's.
Death taxes and.
Well, so this isn't unnatural.
So,
Normally with the
But if it's a very good,
Can you freeze your grapes?
no, very cold. No. No, yeah, this is what it was.
Yeah.
So this guy made this poster. And clearly he's not doing it. Yeah, but he did the, so as an example. Okay. Look here.
Hey, thank you, sorry.
No, that's okay. So, I almost feel bad saying this, but try to add a couple more records to each
But the point is.
thing, and then what we'll do on Monday is we'll do the queries, and then we're essentially done. I think my goal is Wednesday of next week will be an open lab for people to finish anything that needs to be finished.
I think I was looking at Is there?
Oh, I did close it. I put it, I closed it. I guess I said close it there.
So your parents give you like training.
Yeah.
I was like, end of mission was on now. But the point is you can see at a glance where your mind goes. The reason why is way up here at NASA where I work there. It's it was aeronautics. The area where I was like, yeah, I have $1 billion. The guy was in charge of it. Like, yeah. I said, that's why we have no money to do this.
So you were part of that negative 3% that got cut.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I can't work with them. These guys have been here for 30 years. I'm gonna have a job in 3 weeks. It's like, yeah, for a government job.
You would hope so, right?
Because there was a government shutdown and we're just like, I can't.
What's so sad is that we have so much trouble getting the funding from NASA. And you know what the entire funding for NASA is in terms of the percentage of our federal budget?
Look at the little circles are our relative representation.
Yeah. So,
Like bigger circle, smaller circle.
where is that?
So it's
Yeah,
way up
there you
here.
go. So,
Yeah, here's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Military is huge.
I think that even that is not completely accurate because the budget for NASA is a half of 1%. It's like, literally, if you took a dollar bill, it wouldn't even be 1 penny of it.
In fact, he has on here.
The GM bailout costs.
Yeah. the defense budget in 1994 and 2014.
Oh, June.
I mean, look at the, yeah, the graph. We actually, I think he broke it down. Oh, here we go. Military national
Yeah,
versus non-military.
Ours is still way more.
It's been 54% in military.
Okay.
Big brother on block.
Well, see, you guys didn't, oh, right. There used to be some value to that where you can consider, leaving us with them. But like, now it's like, it's constantly destroying our relationships. So it's like, I'm just you're not gonna want to use our next year, so we're going to spend more time.
So here's our money from the left, here's our spending.
Yeah, that's why everybody wants to do it. Oh my God, we got all this money. Which means we're gonna waste a lot of money.
Yeah. And also, it means we're not going to care about people.
Exactly. Keep going. Don't like.
All right. So as I said, the goal is to get a couple more records. We'll do some queries, and when we'll be done, we can maybe do a little thing on security. But if you need to work on other stuff, we could do that too.
Insert some more fans, or
So insert like two. So we got like one show. Yeah, just two in each, two more in each one. That'd be
More
funny.
shows and more
Two more shows, two more venues, and two more bands. That'd be fun. Use the one that you've got that works, and then just sort of change the values is what I would do. If you really wanted to, you could look at them in Compass, but I think it's actually harder to enter them in Compass, although this isn't easy. Did your guys' work okay? Okay. Which one, the fans?
We had a couple minutes.
yeah. I'm curious what Compass even looks like. It's like the GUI version of this.
Okay.
Let's see what this looks like.
Oh, you know what? We don't have a comment to show you.
What is this? Disconnect. I don't know what that means.
No, it isn't connected.
I think it was just.
I think it's just default stuff.
Oh, that's what he said. Oh, yeah, show tracker. It's a great allotted test.
Okay.
3 collections. Fan shows and venues. Oh, okay. 80 years, fans. You have 3, so it did add.
Yeah. I've got one crazy fan and two.
So other than adding data, I think that's it for today, if you guys want.
Oh, so right.
It went smoother this time than in the morning.
All right.
That's been,
We are awesome.
yeah, it's fairly typical this class goes smoother. I think it's just because it's smaller to some extent, but also I learned my lessons
You
in
had
the
your test
morning.
run, yeah. Yeah, I think Compass actually is pretty nice.
Did you make your collection, Iris?
But I guess I can work with this. kind of-
Oh, you're right. Look at the
If you really want to try querying before Monday, you could look, there's a couple of places. My Conger Prep blog has some queries in it. Also in the files, there's a different version of the show tracker, but it has some queries. You could kind of look at the structure of the queries in it. I could show that real quick. I'll do
Is that in Canvas?
Yeah, so if I go to Canvas, and then I should probably kill the video here.
Come on. Very, very. I can't speak. I slur my words because of all my drinking. Because of all my drinking.
You know, how about Michael Jackson?
So if you go to files,
Elvis.
there is a thing that says show tracker JSON text. So this is an earlier version where I did a different version. I kind of prefer what we did, but it has some queries like, you know, if you wanted to find a particular artist for fans, right? This fans, and then this is where you only want to show two of the fields. I'll go over this next time, but and this is where you want to exclude the ID. And this is searching for the artist in shows. And then this is looking for alternative. That's not what we called it. We called it alt rock. But and then this is looking for alternative, but again, it's only returning their name and the email. And then this is a thing if you wanted to search for a whole bunch of.
Is the one like return name one is true and ID is false?
That's correct.
Okay.
It always, so if you don't list, if you do this, notice there's a thing here where you do a separate thing, and if you do name equals 1, email equals 1, those are the only fields it'll show. You can explicitly exclude something by putting a 0 there, but the thing is if you don't put a 1 there, it's excluded anyway. With the exception of the ID always shows. So if you don't want to see the ID, you need to actively exclude it. So these are some of the queries. Also the Mongo, again, the Mongo documentation is actually pretty good. And it has tons of examples of queries and things that you could, if you want to play with it. I've done some before. Yeah, I mean, we can go over it. And then the other place, so I think it's congerprep@blogspot.com. There are some Mongo, I think if I do like Mongo database 2, I made a thing with some things, and it goes through and it has some updates and calculations, and I also did I think it's Mongo First Steps with NoSQL. Has a few simple queries, inserting and instant queries. It takes a bit to get used to. All the queries are in JavaScript too.
For JavaScript? Oh, so you can do some
And I couldn't pull it.
So you have a memory list in JavaScript.
Something like this dot something.
Yeah, JavaScript is not my favorite
Just a
language.
bunch of curly braces and like,
I don't mind the curly braces because I'm used to those, but
Some people seem to like it and some people seem to hate it. I don't know. It's easier.
well, I haven't dealt with it nearly enough to know whether I love it or hate it.
Yeah.
the things that I don't like about it are the same things that some people love about it. It's not type safe. It's I don't know. There's a lot of things in it that are kind of loose and goosey. Which
it mean that it's like the errors would be caught before it gets compiled or something?
By type safe, it means when you declare a variable, Python's a bit this way too. All you do is just say var, and give it a
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
You don't give it a type.
It's very, it can be, it can mess you up too. But it's
So
also,
it by default, when the first time you assign a value, it'll decide what the data type is.
yeah.
80%, maybe even 90% of the time that works. But 10% of the time it gets it wrong.
See, I loved that when I was first learning Python. I thought that was really nice. But then, like, I learned some Java, and then just recently I went back and looked at some of my old Python stuff, and I was like, how did it know that I meant the right thing here? I was like, this seems like this should be a little
But
more
Python,
specific.
again, I've had some problems with Python, although I've been teaching it more and more, and I'm getting fonder of it. But yeah, Python is not type safe either. You can be to some extent, but Python has a very limited type set. It has string, numeric. That's about it.
But it,
String, numeric, or object.
but it seems to be able to function like it's like I don't know. It seems to be more malleable in terms of the like. You don't have to be super precise with those because it knows how to function with.
Yeah, actually, it's got string, int, and float,
Yeah.
and list.
I think I'm taking your Python class 2 quarters from now, so I'm looking forward to that. So,
Okay, the Django one.
yeah.
It should be fun. I spent hours fighting with it to figure out how to make it work, and then once I figured it out, it was quite simple. Like most things, but Python is very abstract.
Yeah.
So one command does something that in Java might take 10 or 12 commands.
That's when I was looking at my old homework from Python. I was looking at that like a program that I wrote was like maybe 10 lines when that would have taken 50 lines in Java. I'm like, wow, man, that seems so crazy. But
There's a lot of stuff like most languages like Java. They have list things. They have arrays. They have trying to think of what they're called.
Data structures.
Well, in the data structures, there's like 15 or 20 different data structures in Java. Different ways of organizing.
Like linked lists and stuff.
Yeah, I was also thinking of there's a word I'm trying to think of.
Or is it collections?
There are collections. There are hashes, which is basically like this, name value pairs.
Yeah.
So they have all these structures. Python doesn't. Python has lists and dictionaries. That's it.
Oh yeah, I remember that now. Yeah. That was the first programming language that I learned, so I didn't really even know that there were all the other kinds of data structures.
Well, my objection to teaching Python as the first language, although everyone else is on board, so I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
Is that it is so different from all the other languages. So I think that there's a learning curve. I think it might be better to start off learning something like Java, which is harder and stricter, and then you can go to Python and say, wow, this is easy.
I actually agree with you. When I first started, I didn't know the difference, and a lot of people told me that learning Python is the best to start with, but then after I learned some Java, I realized that I would have much preferred if I learned this to begin with, because I found Java to be way harder. And then I'm like, oh, well, it's if I learned this first and I didn't know the easier way, the much more efficient way to do things, and I would have been much happier, I think.
Java gives you more control.
Yeah.
So if you're out there in the world writing software, you're going to be writing it in Java or in some C-based language, C++. Python is used for one-off scripts or to some extent web pages. Data analysis, but again, it's a data analysis where you're just scripting something to run some queries. Not too much actual software is written in Python. There are some exceptions. pgadmin, which is the front end to Python, is written not to Python, to Postgres database is written in Python. So there are some exceptions, but Java is by far the most popular language for writing actual software.
I feel like I should get better at Java, at least just so I have one really solid actual software development programming language.
They generally if you have any language down fairly well, they assume you can learn another language.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when you're
learning another
interviewing,
one's
it
not
doesn't.
as hard, yeah. Is JavaScript, is that considered like a real software development language, or is it just it's just kind of scripting, right? Or
It is, although it has become